while everyone is obsessed with millennials, avocado toast, or Gen Z's side hustles. The most powerful economic force in the world is hiding in plain sight. They are the latchkey generation, Gen X, and they are currently sitting on a massive $40 trillion wealth transfer that is about to change everything you know about money. But here's the problem. Most Gen Xers are still playing by a set of rules that no longer exists. They were raised during the Cold War and the birth of the internet, taught to work hard, stay quiet, and trust the 401k system. But that system is breaking. This is where most people fail to understand the Gen X psyche. They aren't just stubborn, they are the bridge between the old school gold standard and the digital frontier. Now, this changes everything. In this video, we're peeling back the layers of the middle child syndrome to reveal why their approach to debt, investing, and retirement is fundamentally different, and honestly, more dangerous than any other group. If you're a Gen Xer or you plan on inheriting from one, you need to understand the hidden system truths that are silently draining your net worth. It's not just about inflation. It's about a psychological blueprint forged in the 80s that is now colliding with the 2026 economy. But it gets worse. Most don't even realize they're being squeezed from both sides, supporting adult kids and aging parents. This is the squeeze play, and if you don't shift your momentum now, you'll be left behind. To understand the Gen X wallet, you have to understand the Gen X childhood. They were the first generation to come home to empty houses, fueled by tang and a sense of absolute self-reliance. This latchkey upbringing created a financial persona rooted in extreme independence. But here's the problem. That DIY mentality has morphed into a trust-no-one approach to professional financial advice. While boomers followed the company man path and millennials look for community consensus, Gen X is out there trying to figure it all out solo. This is where most people fail to see the risk. By carrying the entire burden of financial literacy alone, many Gen Xers are missing the institutional shifts happening in real time. They remember the high interest rates of the late 80s and the dot-com bubble burst of 2000. These aren't just memories. They are psychological scars that dictate every investment move they make today. Now, this changes everything because that skepticism, while protective, is often keeping them in safe assets that are being decimated by the silent tax of inflation. They are essentially running a marathon with a lead weight tied to their ankles. But it gets worse. Because they've always been the middle child, they've been ignored by marketers and financial products alike, leaving them with a sovereign individual complex. They believe they can outwork a systemic problem. But the system truth is that labor alone can no longer outpace the velocity of modern capital. If you don't break the cycle of doing it all yourself, the momentum of the market will eventually crush your retirement dreams. Why is Gen X so obsessed with tangible security? It's because their financial identity was forged in a furnace of volatility. They entered the workforce just as the 1987 Black Monday crash sent shockwaves through the world, and they hit their peak earning years just in time for the 2008 housing collapse. But here's the problem. These events didn't just take their money, they stole their trust. While Gen Z views the market as a casino they can win, Gen X views it as a trap they need to survive. This is where most people fail to see the psychological scar tissue effect. They tend to over-leverage in real estate because they can see it, often ignoring the diversification needed for a 2026 digital economy. Now, this changes everything. That deep-seated fear of losing it all makes them the most likely to hoard cash, which is currently the fastest way to lose purchasing power. They are stuck in a defensive crouch while the world is sprinting toward decentralized finance and AI-driven markets. But it gets worse. This survivalist mindset often leads to analysis paralysis. They spend so much time researching and waiting for the dip that they miss the massive compounding gains that happen during the recovery phases. They are waiting for a stability that the modern world no longer offers. The system truth is simple. The safe path of 1995 is now the riskiest path of today. If you are still waiting for the world to feel certain before you make your move, you've already lost the game of momentum. Right now, Gen X is trapped in the most brutal financial squeeze play in history. They are the sandwich generation, caught between the soaring costs of raising their own children and the mounting medical expenses of their aging boomer parents. But here's the problem. They are sacrificing their own retirement to fund everyone else's survival. This is where most people fail to see the math. Gen Xers are effectively paying for 3 generations on a single household income, and it's draining their ability to leverage compound interest during their final peak earning years. Now, this changes everything because they aren't just losing money. They are losing time, the one asset you can't earn back. They feel a deep moral obligation to do it all. But the system truth is that you cannot pour from an empty cup. By prioritizing their adult children's lifestyle or their parents' comfort over their own wealth building, they are creating a future where they will eventually become a financial burden on their own kids. But it gets worse. While they focus on these immediate fires, they are ignoring the massive wealth transfer of $40 trillion that's headed their way. They aren't prepared to manage it because they're too busy surviving the day-to-day. This isn't just a budget issue. It's a psychological boundary issue. If you don't shift your momentum and start putting your own oxygen mask on first, the squeeze will become a permanent financial trap. While most Gen Xers feel like they are drowning in the squeeze, a massive shift is happening beneath the surface that many are completely unprepared for. We are entering the era of the great wealth transfer, where trillions are moving from boomers to Gen X. But here's the problem. Inherited wealth is often lost within the first 2 years because the recipient lacks the psychological infrastructure to manage it. This is where most people fail. They treat a windfall like a get-out-of-debt-free card rather than a seed for a multi-generational forest. Now, this changes everything. If your current money habit is purely defensive, you will naturally spend an inheritance to solve temporary problems, instead of creating permanent systems. You've been trained to survive the middle child, struggle for so long that you've forgotten how to thrive in a position of power. The system truth is that money doesn't change your habits. It only magnifies them. If you're a DIYer who doesn't trust the market, you'll likely let that inheritance sit in a low-interest savings account, watching its value evaporate into the 2026 inflation cycle. But it gets worse. Without a strategy for taxes and estate laws, nearly 40% of that wealth could be clawed back by the government before it even hits your pocket. You have to stop thinking like a victim of the squeeze and start thinking like a custodian of capital. If you don't build the momentum now to handle larger sums, the great transfer will pass through your hands like sand. We are at the final tipping point. Gen X is currently the most vulnerable generation to the great reset of the financial system, because they are the last ones clinging to the 20th century playbook. But here's the problem. You are competing in a 2026 economy using 1996 logic. You were taught that a diversified portfolio meant a mix of domestic stocks and bonds. But in a world of hyperinflation and AI-driven disruption, that old-school diversification is a death trap. This is where most people fail to see the shift. They view Bitcoin, AI-automated businesses, and decentralized finance as hobbies for Gen Z, while they stick to the stability of their local bank's 1% interest rate. Now, this changes everything. The expert knows that safety is no longer found in the traditional. It is found in the adaptable. If you are a Gen Xer, your greatest asset isn't your house. It's your ability to bridge your decades of professional experience with these new digital tools. But it gets worse. While you hesitate, the wealth gap isn't just widening, it's becoming a canyon. The system truth is that the middle class is being liquidated. You either become a capital owner who understands the digital frontier, or you remain a labor provider for a system that is rapidly automating you out of existence. This is the moment where you must decide if you are a legacy thinker or a digital architect. If you don't build the momentum to pivot your strategy now, the next 5 years will be the most expensive lesson of your life. The era of being the forgotten generation ends today, but only if you choose to step out of the middle child shadow and into financial sovereignty. You have the unique advantage of 20th century grit and 21st century access. But here's the problem. Grit without a modern system is just a slow grind to exhaustion. This is where most people fail. They think they have more time to wait and see. They don't. The transfer of wealth, the shift in global currency, and the rise of AI are happening now. This changes everything. Your identity is no longer tied to how hard you can work for a paycheck, but how effectively you can manage your assets. The system truth is that the new Gen X is the one that stops playing defense and starts building an offensive legacy. This is your momentum moment. You've survived the crashes, you've handled the squeeze, and you've seen the world change overnight. Now, use that perspective to build a fortress that doesn't rely on the broken promises of the old system. But it gets worse for those who ignore this call. They will spend their golden years in the same survival mode they've known since childhood. Don't let that be your story. It's time to stop being the bridge for others and start being the architect of your own freedom. Your next level isn't a destination, it's a total identity shift. If you want to master the systems that Gen X is finally using to win, you need to watch our next deep dive on the Great Liquidation. The game has changed. Make sure you're the one holding the controller.